So let's finish answering questions supporters asked in the month of October. Remember, if you'd like to ask me anything, use the links below to go to Patreon and Subscribestar and contribute at the $3 level. And remember that $5 supporters can also give me a shout out as well. Dave Saunders and Rainbow Asteroids basically had the same question. Hi Shane, what do you think the role should be, if any, of protecting animal rights in a free market libertarian society? Do you think meat is murder? What do you think of people who are vegan in the name of animal rights? This is very much an unsettled question because there's so much we don't know about the neurology of all this, so I'll cover the basic principle with a few examples. Rights are a cooperative concept that's tied to responsibility. You have rights insofar as you have the ability to accept responsibility for the consequences of exercising them. We don't let 2-year-olds have the right to keep and bear arms because there's no way they can be responsible enough with a gun not to cause untold destruction. They're also reciprocative. You have the rights you'll allow others to have. If you try and kill someone else unjustly, you don't exactly have the moral wherewithal to complain if someone tries to kill you. For the most part, animals don't have the level of sapience required to assert that they have rights. But there are a few examples where I think there's some degree of consideration. This isn't an on-off thing, after all. There's a continuum. So, I think other apes are probably intelligent enough to demand certain considerations. Same with animals that can empathize outside of their species, such as elephants and dolphins. For another example, dogs have the ability to be a functioning member of a household. I think that with any of these, you could make the argument that they have the basic right to live, to not be hurt or injured, and to be well cared for by those who have voluntarily taken them in. The main problem in protecting animal rights is that animals can't assert them. They can't actually go into court or somewhere and complain that someone tried to hurt them. So I think the best way of dealing with this is just property rights. Someone owns the animal, and that person can make the complaint on their behalf. And it will be up to them to prove that the animal was sapient enough to demand the particular right being asserted. In the case of rescues, if dogs, for example, are being mistreated or neglected, you could call that an abandonment of the property, and someone would be within their rights to rescue the dog if they could show that they were a better steward of the dog's interests. But this is something that would have to be hammered out and modified appropriately as time goes on and we learn more about it. Thomas Urbanski asks, I've read a couple of times a libertarian is allowed to pass non-libertarian policy if it achieves libertarian goals long term. Kinda, don't get stuck in local optimum thing. Sounds reasonable as a general rule, but how to judge how far off is still okay? And what long term means here? A decade? A generation? A century? See, your questions are already getting into the problem. Where would you draw the line? And without any examples, it's hard to consider any further, other than the general caution that the whole point of deontological ethics is that arguments for violating them are never as reliable as they appear. I've heard it argued that running for office is unjustifiable since you're participating in the aggressive system of the state. But I don't see anything about running for office that is per se aggressive. It's just what you do once you get in. And if you go all Harry Brown and get rid of as many government programs as you can before they impeach you, then you haven't violated any ethics. But I think the spirit of the question is about using aggression to somehow stop aggression, which is logically contradictory. And finally, Rainbow Asteroids asks, what do you think of the Alex Jones case? Oh, that was an absolute travesty, and I think we'll see a lot of that as we go through the rest of the question. Personally, I think it's a little crazy he didn't try to fight the case, losing by default due to not cooperating with Discovery. Now see, this is a perfect example. That is not what happened. In fact, I can't really find a time when someone cooperated as much with Discovery as he did, including turning over a lot of personal texts and emails that had nothing to do with the case, but they demanded anyway. And when I ask people what it was he was supposed to turn over but didn't, no one can give me an answer. It's like they're just blindly accepting the news media's claim and not even thinking about it. The only thing I could figure out by watching the trial is that he didn't turn over the Google Analytics, but he couldn't turn it over because he no longer had access to his Google account. That got eliminated when they kicked him off of YouTube. You lose your Google account, you've lost it all. Which the plaintiffs knew because they're the ones who insisted that Google terminate his account. So they got him kicked off of Google, then got upset when he didn't turn over information he could only get from his Google account. Note also that they didn't make a request to Google to turn this over. I'd also remind you that these are the same plaintiffs that pulled this crap against Remington. Remington complied with every single discovery request, and the plaintiffs still kept whining that they didn't. The plaintiffs claimed they were targeting criminals with advertisements, and they got pissy when they couldn't find anything like that. And that's basically what they did with Alex Jones. Turn over the stuff that proves you're guilty. But I'm not guilty. He violated discovery! So what did they do with Remington? They ordered, quote, "We request that you produce native versions of all embedded images and videos posted to defendants' social media accounts during the relevant period." So they did. And then when they got all the cartoons, memes, and so on that people had posted to their Facebook page, the plaintiffs whined that Remington was making a mockery of discovery. Quote, "It's some type of an effort to perpetrate a document dump where they give you a bunch of stuff you didn't ask for and withhold relevant information that you did ask for." But they did give them everything that they asked for. Everything posted to the social media accounts, which included all the cartoons and memes and everything they were complaining about. If they hadn't produced it, then they would have been violating discovery. It didn't include anything targeting criminals, but maybe, just maybe, that's because they didn't do it. And they drove Remington into bankruptcy, just like Alex Jones. I have no reason to believe they behaved any less reprehensibly here. But even if there were one or two things that weren't turned over, a default judgment? The nuclear option? You don't just violate someone's Seventh Amendment rights over that. The standard remedy is to just consider the documents one party didn't turn over as supporting the facts of the other party. There were remedies other than the nuclear option here. But all you need to do is watch any portion of the trial to see how histrionic the plaintiffs were and how corrupt the judge is. However, I don't understand how Alex Jones could have dealt $1,000 in damages by espousing conspiracy theories, let alone $1 billion. He couldn't, especially since he didn't at first. They were making out like he was the originator of the conspiracy theory when for months he was saying that Sandy Hook happened. He briefly claimed that it was a hoax and went on an apology tour on Joe Rogan and everywhere else he could. And how could he even have caused damages to the FBI agent? None of which he was allowed to tell the jury, by the way. This was a show trial, nothing more. And I say this as someone who can't stand Alex Jones. I think he said some awful things that he should probably have to pay some money for. But understand, the principles of justice are very important. If you're delighting in this verdict, basically the only way you can get there is schadenfreude. And that's how they get you. They start by going after someone awful that a lot of people aren't going to want to defend, who a lot of people are going to love to see taken down. And before too long, those principles are destroyed, and there's nothing to stop them coming after you. Well, that finally takes care of the month of October. Thanks so much for watching. Comments for the Comment God, shares for the Share Throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.